Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. We already got folks in the chat. What's up, Foxy Dragon? Wicked Foxy Dragon. What's up, Wireless Mike 73? Good to see you both here. Folks, we are going to do bonus segments. The first one is a segment from Midas Touch if we can get to 10 likes on this very stream. So hit it, Wicked Senate. Hit the like button, and we will if we get to 10. Watch this Midas Touch bonus. How are you, says Wicked Foxy Dragon. Perhaps to Wireless Mike. Back doing any better, she asks. I hope that is the case, Wireless Mike. I do see a question from Wicked Foxy Dragon asking, I love that you are referencing Common Cause. Oh, excuse me, not a question. I love that you are referencing Common Cause. I volunteer for them all the time. For volunteering for Common Cause, my dear, you are the wicked citizen of the day. Well done. Wicked Foxy Dragon just earned that moniker because that is a hell of a good organization. And what the hell? What the hell? If somebody's looking to work for Common Cause, you do the old reliable link here. There you go. Someone's looking to get a career, get paid to do good. There you go. They're looking for a Florida outreach coordinator, a national membership coordinator, and I'm sure others. There you go. Let's spread the love a little bit. Ooh, Wicked Foxy Dragon says, I volunteer for the Truth Brigade, too. I have not heard of them. Intriguing. All right, I'll have a gander at those folks in a little bit. We have highs and lows, folks, and this first thing I'm going to show you, I almost held back to the second segment so that we could just redeem some of our souls. But it's more important, I think, than what will now be the second segment. So we're going to have a look at it. But let me do a proper intro. What do you say? What do you do? What do you say? All right, let's do this intro. Great. Well, it turns out in the United States of America, if the people give a damn, and if the people grab hold of every lever of power that is available to them, we get those W's, and we stop fascism in its tracks. I am, of course, talking about the return of, I believe it's Justin Pearson? No, Jones. The return of one of the Tennessee legislators that was kicked out of the Congress in Tennessee by a bunch of racists. Here we go. This is here's the local news covering it. You'll see what I mean in a moment.
Right now, the Tennessee House is back in session, and one lawmaker has his seat back. The fallout from the expulsion vote last week continues to make headlines this week. Thank you for watching 10 News at 6. I'm Robin Wilhoit.
And I'm John Becker. New at 6. Within the last 20 minutes, Justin Jones now has his legislative seat back. A unanimous vote by Nashville Metro Council appointed Representative Jones to an interim seat. There will still be a special election, but Representative Jones was the only council nominee at their special meeting tonight.
Justin Jones has been elected as the interim successor for the vacant seat of Tennessee House District 52.
You hear the reaction there from the crowd, and Metro Council's vote happening within the last half hour. A date for that special election has yet to be determined.
Well,
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well done. If you're from Tennessee, you should be proud of this moment. Well done. How to do it. Never, ever shy away from talking about something because we're trying to get so fancy with our strategy that we convince ourselves that it's not a fight worth having. Every fight should be taken up. Jones is back, baby, as he should be. I'm not sure what the situation is with Pearson. It's possible. It's possible the same thing could happen with him, that he could be, I mean, it's the same state, so it's going to be the same rules theoretically, that he could be placed back as the interim representative before a new one is officially appointed, or rather, before they are elected again. But this is hugely positive for anybody who's just interested in justice. Let's talk about it in the big screen. I mean, it's hard to get much better than that, isn't it? Justin Jones is back. It was that quick. And what was lost in that fight by the racists in the Tennessee legislature cannot be regained. They took their mask off. They showed the world their true face. They try to put that Klan hood back on. We're going to remember who's under it. Beautiful. Zix says, but what about the other Justin? Yeah, I don't know. So far, I have not heard anything. But I will certainly let you know when I do. We fight disinformation, says Wicked Foxy Dragon, talking about the Truth Brigade. Hell yes. Well, that's right up my alley. Wireless Mike says, I'm glad to hear it. I hope the other one runs for governor. Yeah. Well, what the hell? Speaking of governors, we got another segment we should talk about. Let's jump into that. So Texas Governor Greg Abbott is trying to legalize the murder of leftists. Let's not mince words here, as clearly we're not going to, but this has been done in more subtle ways in the past. And it's been getting more and more blatant. You know, referring to everybody that protests for Black Lives Matter as a rioter, daring to compare any of the Black Lives Matter protests to the January 6th protest. Daring to do that has been a version of this. Kyle Rittenhouse was allowed to get away with murdering leftist protesters. Kyle Rittenhouse, as you know, is a murderer who was allowed to get away with murder. That's the advantage the right holds right now. That's how corrupt and evil the right is in the United States of America right now. Make no mistake. Murders like this will keep happening because the murderers believe that they are immune from the law. And they have reason to believe that. Here is TYT talking about Greg Abbott's plan to legalize the murder of lefties. Well, that's
tonight we extended an invitation.
That's a hell of an intro. Here we go. I do like their intros, but it starts with Tucker Carlson criticizing Greg Abbott for not legalizing the murder of lefties.
To come on this show on Monday. And we wanted to ask if he was considering a pardon for Daniel Perry. But for some reason,
they'll tell you who that is in a moment.
Governor Greg Abbott's office told us he just can't make it and that we should talk to the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, instead. So that is Greg Abbott's position.
I want to be really clear, despite that video being of Tucker Carlson, he's not our Monday menace. He could be, but he's not. No, it is actually Greg Abbott, because you know what Greg Abbott did after that? He did what Tucker Carlson wanted. And you can bring up this tweet of Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, says he is going to be working to pardon this guy, Sergeant Daniel Perry, who killed a protester. And we're going to give you all the details. And I want to be very clear. They don't give a damn about any of the details that we're going to describe to you. The only thing that they need to know is that he killed a protester in a BLM rally. That's what it was. And so nothing else matters at that point. He went to the rally bringing his gun. He shot and killed someone. He's the good guy.
That is, and has been for a while now, how Republicans think. If you kill someone on the left, you don't need to get punished for it. In other words, people that vote Republican believe it's okay to kill people you disagree with politically. That's what the Republican Party is. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. You're literally voting for your lives now. Let them keep going. Listen to how absolutely, number one, obnoxious, and number two, common this person's beliefs are. Listen to the reasoning he used to murder this person. By the way, he was convicted of murder. Tell me if it's any different than Kyle Rittenhouse gunning down the other protesters. That these monsters in the Republican Party, voters and politicians, that they would dare support this. The fact that there's not Republicans out right now demanding that Greg Abbott resign, that tells me everything I need to know about these people.
That is it. That is all the governor of one of the largest states in the country cares about. The guy, by the way, on Fox News with the biggest audience only cares about the fact that someone they code as a leftist got gunned down, thus no crime was committed. But don't just take my word, for it. I want to give you the details. So last Friday, Travis County jury found Daniel Perry, the guy that they're advocating for, guilty in the death of Garrett Foster, a 28-year-old. So police said that Perry, based at the time 70 miles north at Fort Hood, was driving in downtown Austin on the evening of July 25th in 2020 when he encountered demonstrators in the street and came to a stop. Foster was legally carrying a semi-automatic rifle, which every right-winger says is the best thing ever. You should be walking around with them constantly. There's nothing suspicious about it. When he approached the intersection where protesters had gathered, police said he was fatally shot by Perry, who stayed in a vehicle and used a handgun. Perry claimed to police that Foster, an Air Force veteran, had pointed the weapon at him, inspiring him to shoot in self-defense. Foster was pronounced dead at the hospital. So his entire claim is based on self-defense because Foster pointed the gun at him. Although I keep being told by right-wingers that having a gun, pointing a gun, there's nothing suspicious or dangerous about that. That's what patriots do. Weird how when someone, even though he's a vet, is coded as a leftist, all of a sudden it becomes an immediate signing of his death warrant. So Perry said, I didn't know he was gonna aim it at me. I thought he was gonna kill me. I've never been so scared in my life. Bear in mind, it seems pretty clear that he drove specifically to find these protesters. So bear that in mind.
Guy went looking for trouble, and he went looking for trouble armed. By the way, at the state level, something you can do is tell your representative you want laws against bringing a weapon to a gathering. Let's call them stopping mass shooting laws. No more should people be allowed to show up to a protest armed. I don't care if you're protesting. I don't care if you're protesting to protest. I don't want to see that anymore. It's got to end. It's just right-wingers looking to pick a fight and then shoot the people they provoked.
But anyway, this claim that Foster raised the barrel of his AK-47 is Perry's principal hope, okay? It was refuted over and over during the first 3 days of the trial by witnesses who were near Foster that night. All repeated basically the same story. They heard squealing tires as a car sped into a group of about 20 protesters. The protesters, some of whom had almost been hit by the car, slapped and kicked it.
Attempted murder number one.
Understandably, they were almost run down. Garrett Foster strode to the car's side and issued an order to the driver. All of the witnesses insisted that Foster did not raise the barrel of his gun. According to the DA's lead prosecutor, his gun was recovered with the safety still on and no bullet in the chamber.
And then he was killed, which was actual murder. And he was convicted of it. In Texas. Now Greg Abbott says he wants to pardon this man who was convicted of murder in Texas. Nope. No, sir. Link in the description. Do what I just did 10 minutes before the show went live. Write Greg Abbott. In this case, I called. And tell him, should be able to leave a message. Tell him exactly what you think of this. In addition, write your representatives and tell them you want this slammed over and over publicly. Let's make it crystal clear who is doing what in our government. People should be, literally, if you're on the left, you should be concerned for your life. Not an exaggeration. What did that guy do? He drove his car into protesters, at protesters. People responded appropriately. They struck the car. They slapped the car. Okay. He gets out and he shoots somebody to death. And now the governor of Texas would dare suggest that that guy gets to get away with it. Kyle Rittenhouse did get away with murder. It will get worse and worse and worse until there are consequences. Provide them. The people must demand them. Ain't a joke, folks. Ooh, that got me hopping mad. Hey, there is good news. There actually is good news. This is public. And there are people around the country who have traditionally voted Republican, who pride themselves on using logic. It's not hard to show how voting Republican from here on out is a betrayal of the country. It's a betrayal of law and order. It's a betrayal of decency. Shove this in their face, though. Don't let them ignore this. Don't let them pretend like this isn't part of what they're supporting when they vote Republican. In fact, make sure they know that in any state, if they're voting Republican, this is what they're supporting. This is who they are. Murderous monsters, all of them. And they should be treated as such. Let's look at what the wicked audience has to say. Sorry, I got a little hot there. Wireless Mike says they always go looking for trouble, yet they act like they're surprised when they find it. Yeah. Wicked Foxy Dragon says, I get going to a protest armed, but I have to disagree with not allowing people to carry their guns to events. I never leave the house without my gun in my purse. Yeah, there's an agree to disagree. I think there should probably be laws to prevent bringing firearms to a situation like that. That said, when there's not such laws in place, I also think if you have a firearm, then you should probably bring it. Until the other side is disarmed equally, it makes no sense for us to show up and say, please shoot me, I've got a skateboard, Mr. Rittenhouse. Of course, my gun, says Wicked Foxy Dragon, is not loaded. The clip is not in the gun, and I have a CCW permit. Yeah, responsible gun owner. I don't think there should be tighter laws about how you can get a... I do think there should be tighter laws about how you should get a CCW. Yeah, interesting point. Zix says, Zix1326 says, he'd never get past the first words of the call if I told Abbott what I really think. Good. Let him hear 5 or 6 really offensive words. Chew his ass out. He ought to know that he's pissed off a lot of people around the country. Don't say anything stupid. Only say what you mean and only mean legal things. But be absolutely clear that this guy will never, ever grace the national stage in a way that will get your vote. And just generally try to make his day worse. If there's nice messages from constituents on his phone service there, make them impossible to find because he has to listen to 10 hours of people screaming at him first. Genuinely try to make him depressed. Try to make it so that when Greg Abbott goes home, he doesn't laugh with his kids and his wife, and instead just feels the country's hatred because he should, because he is a person who is worthy of our ire. Holy Christ, I think I need to go to another segment. I'm hopping mad about that still. Contact your representatives. That's the thing to do. Oh, gosh. Well, here's some redemption for the world. Chuck Todd, of all people, did an interview with, do I have this queued up? Yeah. With a lawyer, one of Trump's fellas, that I think might have been maybe the best interview Todd has done, certainly all year. Let's have a look at it. I should probably record the intro. So Chuck Todd just did a fantastic interview wherein he grilled an attorney coming to Trump's defense on just the obvious criminality that Trump was showing in the obstruction case with the documents. Let's have a look at this guy being, the guy Todd is interviewing, being utterly unable to answer any questions in a way that makes Trump look good. It's beautiful. It was embarrassing for Trump's side, which means it just about made my day. Plus, I need the palate cleanser.
Turning now to the unprecedented scene that played out in New York City on Tuesday as Donald Trump became the first former president charged with a crime. 34 felony counts of falsifying business records stemming from alleged hush money payoffs he made to adult film star Stormy Daniels at the time that it's alleged to avoid a scandal ahead of the 2016 election. Trump's route to the courthouse to be fingerprinted and arraigned was tracked in an OJ-like style overhead that you might expect from the New York City media and on the ground. He pleaded not guilty, but it is just the first chapter of what's likely to be a very busy spring of legal developments. You have the civil trial for battery and defamation. That begins in just over 2 weeks in one of 2 cases New York author E. Jean Carroll has brought against the former president.
Just to be clear, that battery he's referring to is rape. E. Jean Carroll says Trump is a rapist, and that's what she intends to prove in court.
There's the criminal case in Georgia that's focused on the former president's efforts to overturn his 2020 election defeat there. And then, of course, there's the special counsel probe into the former president's potential mishandling of classified documents, where the special counsel Jack Smith is looking into possible obstruction. The former president addressed that probe at Mar-a-Lago on Tuesday night.
You have a radical left lunatic known as a bomb thrower who is harassing hundreds of my people day after day over the boxes hoax. You know, the boxes hoax, as we call it. They like to say that I'm obstructing, which I'm not, because I was working with NARA very nicely until the raid on my home.
Joining me now is James Trusty. He is one of the former president's attorneys in the classified documents case.
And he is about to be deeply embarrassed. Ooh, boy.
Mr. Trusty, welcome to the press. Morning. Thank you for giving me a few minutes. I want to start with that Washington Post report this week. Let me read an excerpt from it. That there's a They believe the special counsel is looking at obstruction of justice as a crime in this situation. Investigators now suspect, based on witness statements, security camera footage, and other documentary evidence, that boxes including classified material were removed from a Mar-a-Lago storage area after the subpoena was served, and that Trump personally examined at least some of those boxes. What's your client's response to this assertion?
Yeah, well, that it's nonsense. I mean, look, there's been a campaign of leaks from DOJ, unlike anything I've ever seen. I was a prosecutor for 27 years. I spent 17 at this Department of Justice. I don't recognize it anymore. They are consistently leaking. The angle they're pushing on the obstruction is to try to create some sort of daylight.
Just to be clear, the information we've heard about this largely has come from Donald Trump himself. And the story about leaks has also come from Donald Trump himself. This guy has been, if you're MAGA, listen to me closely now. Come here. If you're MAGA, Trump is the only reason we even know about the documents case at all. He could have said nothing, and there wouldn't have been nothing. In fact, by all accounts, it looks like Merrick Garland would have just let him get away with it, because that's who our weak-ass attorney general is. Trump is the reason people even know about the documents case. He might be the reason there even is a documents case, because when the FBI raided his home, it was just to give the documents that he refused to give back. The FBI raided his home. It was to physically take back documents that were not his to keep. Now you know.
Between Joe Biden's possession of documents and President Trump's. And it's not going to work.
Get him,
They have literally put in everybody to grand jury you could imagine. They don't respect any privilege that President Trump holds. And it's desperately trying to find an obstruction angle that just isn't there.
Former president himself, though, basically admitted to the crime. This is what he said to Sean Hannity.
I can't imagine you ever saying, bring me some of the boxes that we brought back from the White House. I'd like to look at them. Did you ever do that?
I would have the right to do that. There's nothing wrong with it.
But I know you. I don't think you would do it.
Well, I don't have a lot of time, but I would have the right to do that. Right. I would do that. There'd be
All right, let me move on.
Delighted. Ooh, delighted that they Todd came with the clips.
The law does he have a right to these classified documents? Presidential Record Act is
watch this guy
clear. There's no vagary here.
No, well, you're right, but I think you're misinterpreting the Presidential Records Act. You notice he didn't say, I did this, I possessed it. He said, I would have the right. He's correct. Under the Presidential Records Act, which is a non-criminal statute, that's the key. DOJ and political bureaucrats at NARA criminalize something using criminal tools, grand jury subpoenas, search warrants, for a statute that says, look,
just for the record, no, he's not right.
Presidents work with NARA, work with them for years, figure out what stuff they get. It took 18 years, I think, for Nixon's tapes to finally get to NARA. So
Presidential Records Act was created because of that incident with Richard Nixon. So this guy is being dishonest, and all it would take is a journalist to have done a little bit of homework in order to disprove him. And guess what Chuck Todd did?
There's a delay built into the process as they negotiate in good faith. In this case, NARA was hypersensitive, immediately trying to pounce on President Trump to say he's holding on to things he's not entitled to. But the remedy for all of that, if you have that fight between the archivist and the former president, is civil litigation. Okay. And they jumped right past that with a very happy and willing DOJ.
Well, you say that, but they actually spent over 18 months before asking for a subpoena. He signed, he had a lawyer sign that he had returned all classified documents. So the problem is he actively misled NARA, so it forced a situation where they didn't know where else to turn other than the law. I mean, he himself lied via a lawyer, which has gotten that lawyer in trouble.
Well, you're putting together a whole bunch of hoops that don't actually connect. Look, NARA had 15 boxes given to them in January of 2022. 15 boxes, just here it is, take it, use these for archives. I've looked through those records, those documents, And you have a process. This is what every other president in history has gone through, is a process of communicating and resolving issues as to what stuff he wants to keep and what stuff he wants to give over.
None of it belongs to him. He has this mistaken feeling that none of it belongs to him. It belongs to the presidency.
Read the Personal Records Act, the Presidential Records Act. There is the ability of any president to deem things as personal, to say, I'm going to keep these as personal.
Sure.
If NARA disagrees, they can sue in D.C. That's not what happened.
I understand that, but he seems to, and you seem to be, I think, maybe unintentionally misrepresenting the law when you talk about Nixon.
All right, so he's going back to the Nixon thing. No, not unintentionally. Don't give him that credit. But let's go to the other thing. Trump gave back 15 boxes, he said. Trump gave back some, not all. How about this? If Trump wanted to disagree with what the government could and couldn't have, how about you give them all back, everything they were requesting, and then, if you want, you work with them to see what they'll give to you. Private citizen who's not the president anymore. How about that?
The law was passed after Nixon. Nixon had a case because the law wasn't in place. The law was effective with the Reagan presidency in 1981. Does Donald Trump think he should get paid?
Boom.
Is that what's going on here? Because Nixon got paid $18 million. Is he just holding these documents for some sort of financial settlement?
Nah, that's a cheap shot. Look,
he keeps bringing up this Nixon thing. What other?
Every shot they will say is cheap. Republicans are like soccer players that flop over when somebody runs within 15 yards of them. They don't know even, frankly, how to play the game. They only know how to call for penalties. That's it. Pathetic.
Okay, so let's go more modern day, because you're right about the timing of the Presidential Records Act. Bill Clinton.
He acknowledges that. So what? He's implying that he didn't just learn that? Well, why'd you say it as a defense in the first place? Why'd you say it? Because he is a liar. Why are the people representing Trump liars? Why do they feel the need to lie? He just acknowledged that he knew that little bit about the Presidential Records Act. It was a bad argument either way. It was either bad because he was being dishonest, or it was bad because he wasn't educated enough to talk about it. And he didn't really understand it. Well, it turns out, yeah, he really did understand it. So he says, okay, I acknowledge that, moving on. You're telling me, why'd you make the case? Why'd you make the argument in the first place? That should tell you, if you're wondering, am I on the right side? Am I on the wrong side? That should be a strong hint right there. The dude arguing for Trump knowingly lied just now in this interview. And he's trying to just skate past that. Of course, Chuck Todd will let him. Chuck Todd still is about as scary as a snarling puppy. But still, good work there. And this guy ought to be ashamed.
Had multiple recordings he kept in a sock drawer of his presidency while in the Oval Office, talking to foreign leaders, talking to advisors. He basically said, hey, that stays in my sock drawer. It's personal. NARA didn't blink. Obama Foundation had millions of documents in a former, I think, furniture store out in Illinois. Arguable whether it was ever really truly secure. They acknowledged that they had classified documents, probably to the tune of thousands. And there was never any blink by NARA. They, in fact, said, we're going to give NARA $3.3 million to help move these documents back eventually when we have a digitized library. That's never happened. Now, the payments may have happened, but that's never happened. NARA was perfectly comfortable accepting money for a move that won't happen for thousands of classified documents in some place near a McDonald's in Illinois, and never blinked. Never any criminal tools, never any criminal referrals. So look, this has a rotten underpinning in terms of bureaucrats being politicized, followed up by an all too eager DOJ to criminalize something that's not a crime. That was the point of the president's comment.
He has done with classified documents what no former president has ever done. I mean, you keep trying to say all of those situations you represent, there was actual cooperation by those former presidents to deal with the dispute. In this case, not only is he not cooperating, he is actively not cooperating. And again, he did not comply with a subpoena. That's the end of the day. That's the obstruction charge. Why didn't he comply with the subpoena? There was a subpoena for all classified documents. He did not comply with the subpoena. He was caught not complying with the subpoena because of the search warrant ended up turning up more classified documents. How do you explain him defying a subpoena?
Chuck.
Fantastic questions from Chuck Todd. He is angling for a nickname on this channel. Suggestions in the comments, please. I like Haymaker Hank. I like, Hurtin' Bomb Henrietta. I don't know. But, yeah, he's angling for a nickname. That's a great question. Let's watch this guy struggle.
The Democratic narrative, which you're touting right now to try to draw a distinction.
It's just a set of facts.
Well, let me finish.
Why call it a Democratic narrative? It's a set of facts.
Because you're...
Same thing. The Democratic narrative will always be, so long as lefties are in charge of the Democratic Party, the facts. So they're both right here. That is a Democratic narrative. Reality is a Democratic narrative.
You're ignoring a set of facts. Let's talk about Delaware. You've got a vice president that has documents for decades in this Chinese-funded Penn Biden Center, right? You've got absolute obstruction there because we don't even have any sort of...
How's that obstruction?
Because he had no right to have those documents.
Right, and
he didn't have any...
And did he refuse to turn them over when he found them?
Well, I don't know. It was hidden for so many months.
Again, did he turn them over?
Did his lawyers turn that over without any sense of chain of custody or any sorts of
Has the former president turned this over?
Well, we don't
subpoena?
have the leaks coming from Rob Hur's investigation to know the details of exactly how stuff was turned over.
So is your defense that hey, we think other people broke the law, so let us break the law?
No, of course not. I
mean, I just think that doesn't seem to be a good defense.
Chuck, the point of it is...
Oh, he's knocking him around. He's mauling him. This guy isn't just against the ropes. He's cowering against the post. Good Lord. I mean, look. I don't think this speaks to this guy's skill as a lawyer. Not at all. Well, what's the old lawyer saying? Don't try to defend an intangible case, an undefendable case, in other words. Don't try to defend it, because you'll look like a fool, because it's foolish to do that. Unfortunately for this guy, Trump said, go represent me on TV. I imagine the guy got stars in his eyes and scrambled to the set. But defending Trump on TV means making an ass of yourself, which is what is happening, and this guy deserves it. Get him, Chuck.
It's not to say that somebody else broke the law and we did too, it's okay. It's to point out that the common denominator, whether you're talking about New York, Georgia, or DOJ, is differential treatment for President Trump than anybody in history. And to sit there and whitewash Delaware and to wonder aloud about 1,800 boxes that are in the Delaware University that Biden put there. I mean, we are shut out from information about a much more egregious and intentional violation of the Presidential Records Act by Joe Biden, and perhaps even having documents that relate to Ukraine, of all places. That's pretty scary stuff. Now, I'm not saying anybody should be criminally prosecuted if you're a president or a vice president for having some of these documents in your possession or having people transport them to your home.
Let me ask you this. There's some reports that some classified documents were found on a laptop. They turned over a thumb drive. Can you guarantee that no copies of these classified documents still remain at Mar-a-Lago? Do you know this for a fact that right now there are no more classified documents at Mar-a-Lago?
Yeah, sure. And I can tell you the leak about what happened with this additional documents or several documents that were found in the thumb drive is absurd. We actually have a federal prosecutor that was in court that completely mischaracterized that. It's been the same mischaracterization that the media has run with to suggest that President Trump is just sitting on a mountain of documents. It's not true at all. It was a completely innocuous situation, 4,500 pages of documents with several mixed in that didn't stand out to a low-level staffer, period.
Now seems like a good time to remind you that some of the documents that were taken were classified for SCIF-only reading. Those are the SCI documents. In other words, documents that if they left a SCIF, need their own separate investigation to figure out how they got out of the SCIF without being signed out. because they're not supposed to be able to even leave the skiff when you are working with them. They live in there forever. Them's the rules. Just thought I'd remind you, as this guy says, 4,500 pages of documents were being combed through. Wild.
We found out that she had it.
Yeah.
We said, did you ever make copies of this? Did it ever go anywhere? And we chased down the chain of custody in a professional manner and immediately turned that over to the FBI and DOJ. They try to run with that as obstruction. It's the exact opposite.
Do you know for sure whether the former president got involved with the unpacking and moving of the boxes or not?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine? Does anybody in their right mind really think that Donald Trump came down to Mar-a-Lago while still president, I guess, in January, and said, hey, these are the boxes I packed. Let's be careful with those. That goes in the dining room. That goes in the closet.
He told Hannity he could.
Yes. To answer that guy's question, yes. Does anybody in America really think that Trump did that with the documents? I do, right here. I do. So as an American, what I would like to happen, just so that we don't, throw a guy in prison over just my opinion, what I'd like to happen is there to be an investigation, an indictment, and then a trial wherein we look at whether or not he did that. And then what I would like to have happen is to have a jury of Trump's peers, which would be mine as well, because, again, I can't stress, he is just some guy. What I would like to have happen is for a jury then to decide whether or not he did this thing. That's what I would like to have happen. You miserable.
No, he is not denying any of this.
He said, I would have the right to. He didn't pack the boxes. Come on. I mean, that's like absurd to think that President Trump, in the middle of January of 2021.
He didn't say, I want to keep certain documents. You don't think he did that?
If you look at the boxes, as I have.
You make this to seem like it's hard to believe to anybody that has covered or spent time with the former president. I know you're new to him. This is who he is.
So
thank you, Chuck Todd, for reminding people again of the reality and that they have two eyes for the most part and two ears for the most part and one whole entire brain for the most part. I mean, that bit of bringing us back to reality is important. Chuck Todd saying, like, wait a minute, you're acting like this is crazy. This is very much something Trump would do. This dude has shown no respect for America, Americans, or the laws we have to live by. Yes, this is something Trump would do, and yes, it is a reasonable conclusion to draw for any American that he stole intentionally our documents and intentionally withheld them from our government. In other words, withheld them from us. Stolen from us, withheld them from us. Yes, that is a reasonable assumption to make and should be hashed out in a court of law. And while this clown is correct, actually, not Chuck Todd, but the other clown, while the other clown is correct, that Trump didn't actually say that's what he did. He did communicate rather strongly what his defense was going to be in that Hannity interview, which is that he had the right to do the thing that Hannity was trying to get him to say he didn't do. Why did Trump so vehemently say what he said about that? Because that's what he's going to argue in court. That's why.
You're going to vouch for him packing the boxes.
I'm just asking, the idea that he wouldn't do this, he himself just said it.
Chuck, you listen to what he said. This is the third time I've had to correct you. It's, I would have the right. That's what he said to Hannity.
If he didn't do it, he'd say he didn't do it.
No, Chuck. He's making the point that it's not illegal for a president to possess documents like this. But the bottom line is, I'll make it clear to you, since you seem to be struggling with it, President Trump didn't sit there with masking tape and Sharpies and say, hey, let's sit down Indian style and start packing these boxes and send them to Mar-a-Lago.
I don't think anybody's alleged he was sitting Indian style. I'll give you that.
Well,
let me ask you this.
Distinction.
Let me ask you this. But the former president is called Jack Smith a lunatic?
Let's just, before we move on, more to the point there. Point is, Trump was responsible for them. Who had responsibility for those documents? The dude that took them. Do we have a larger problem with officials hanging on to documents that they shouldn't hang on to? Sure we do. But the question is, did Trump return the documents when asked? No, he didn't. Did he try to hide the documents from people that were coming to get him? Well, it looks like he did. Now the lawyer is trying to claim, well, Trump didn't know what he still had. That's essentially what his argument is coming down to. Trump didn't know what he still had. I'll tell you, I think the answer to that is going to be demonstrated in a court, and I can't wait for it.
A fully weaponized monster, a political hitman. You worked with Jack Smith at the Justice Department for quite a few years. Is that the Jack Smith you know?
Well, here's the point. I would say two things. One is the president has every right to be frustrated by being politically targeted. I mean, we are crossing a Rubicon where prosecutors can announce, and this is the New York case specifically, and Georgia, hey, I'm going to run for office on the idea of taking down Donald Trump. That is flipping the whole idea. I mean, I was a prosecutor for 27 years. They are supposed
Jack
to be...
Smith, I'm not talking
well, let me
about,
finish. I'll
I'm
get
not
to
talking
Jack.
about it.
I'm getting to Jack.
Okay.
It is... You know, you are supposed to be judicious. You're supposed to pursue the evidence where it takes you. You're to use your discretion as a prosecutor to do what's right. When you have people saying, I'm the best guy to get him, to go on networks and target him, that is a different model. That is something that makes it very easy to represent this president because that is a change in the whole nation's fabric. He is very aware of that. You know, when he talks about it, he immediately gets into this is a devastating development for our country, and he's right. Now, on the Jack Smith side, here's what I'll say. We have seen DOJ overreach from day one. I mean, I've already talked about the criminalizing of something that's civil, but I'm talking about dragging assistant landscapers, maids, telling people, you better give me the password to this laptop or you'll be in D.C. for grand jury in 2 days. I mean, they have overreached every step of the way. And
here's a quick counterpoint that I'm pretty sure Todd does not make. Why are they talking to these people? Why are they talking to the landscaper who somehow has the password to the password to a laptop that the government needs to get in to retrieve classified documents? Guy's complaining that, Trump's landscaper got called in. How ridiculous is that? Bit of an own goal there, fella. Because why does the government's investigation need to encompass this dude? Could it be that the landscaper could have accessed these documents? Were they that poorly stored? And this guy wants to know, why is everybody going after Trump? Well, it'd be things like that. It might be. It might just crazy thought, but it might be that Trump is not a good custodian of the people's records. That's a reason why. You clown.
And, you know, I'm not saying it's all Jack Smith. All roads lead to the Attorney General. The Attorney General, 4 days after the raid at Mar-a-Lago, did something no prosecutor I've ever seen does, which is stand up to a press conference and say, hey, we got a permission slip from a judge and we found some stuff. You
stand by the comments he's made about Jack Smith?
Wait a minute. Don't go back to, all right, maybe go back to the Jack Smith thing to hold this increasingly nervous looking man to it. Why did Merrick Garland give that press conference? Well, that would be because Trump announced that he was raided. And yeah, Trump did get raided because he refused to give back the documents. And by the way, during that raid, they recovered a lot of documents that Trump refused to give back to us. They were our documents, not his. So this guy just said, all roads lead to Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, 4 days after the raid, did something that no attorney general has ever done. Yeah, he reacted to something no former president has ever done. Inherently dishonest.
Calling him a monster.
I'm telling you, there's reason to be frustrated, and there's an unethical nature of this prosecution when the Attorney General holds a press conference that not even a local DA in Butte would do because they know it's against the ethics.
You're going to get no notes if you call him on this.
So you stand by the president politicizing these attacks on Jack Smith?
No, look, the president a very resilient guy. He is a very opinionated guy. I'm not going to spend my time worrying about the politics, worrying about how his poll numbers are through the roof. I mean, I don't care about that stuff. I'm here in the legal lane, and he's got a right to be frustrated, but he's not just frustrated for himself. He's frustrated for the country.
All right, James Trusty, the attorney for the former president. I appreciate you coming on
and
expressing the president's views.
Chuck Todd was close to being in the No Notes Club for the first time ever on WYCD Wicked. Oh boy, he was close. Didn't quite get there. Really would have liked him to mention that little fact about the Merrick Garland press conference. Have a look at what the Wicked community has to say. The anti-corporatist, good to see you, my friend. I really wish that they'd released the details on the docs Pence and Biden had. Chances are they were things like the president's upcoming schedule. Classified at the time, not so much critical now. Yeah. I think that would be healthy to declassify as much as possible, and I think that would be healthy in any situation. We certainly do overclassify in the United States. I think a lot of our leaders use it as an excuse to just cover their own trails. Zix1326 says, and I have seen that large corps do employ big guys in very nice suits to escort wrongdoers to their fates. Yeah. You see, I think I saw, did I see Franny P in here? Good to see you, Franny P. Geez, Jake, who do you think you are? A citizen of the USA? Yeah, crazy. Crazy that those who are in charge of the USA tend to forget that the citizens are supposed to have the most power overall. The anti-corporatist says, although probably if they weren't still problematic docs, we've had heard about it by now. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. I do think the default is to just classify whatever they can get away with classifying, but maybe not. Mark L. Madison said, the important, in quotes, the important thing to remember here is Hunter Biden squirrel. Yeah. Oh, we are at 11 likes, folks. That means we are definitely doing the Midas Touch video today. Let me change this up a little bit. I'm going to unpin that message. Let's get ambitious. 20 likes. Oh, shit. Well, now I've demonetized the stream and done a silly message. Here we go. Anti-corporatists, in honor of you, I'm retracting the message that I changed. There we go. I think it's a good habit, generally speaking. At 20 likes, we will look at a comedian's talk about Joe Biden. Well done, and thank you, by the way, for making this stream more popular by participating. It's truly, truly appreciated. Well, we have. You know what? Let's do instant rewards. I have not seen this Midas Touch clip. It looked good. It looked interesting. And so I'd like to have a gander. Let me do an intro here. Well, thank you so much for the likes. We have passed the mark necessary to do this, so we're going to watch a Midas Touch clip. I haven't seen it yet, but I do surely like what it's talking about. Apparently, Bonnie Willis has fired a warning shot, so to speak, and given Trump his final warning about interfering with the investigation. Now, just to give you some context for this, the through line of basically every single investigation that involves Donald Trump is his attempt to obstruct justice. This guy obstructs justice like the rest of us drink water. It's the most natural thing in the world to him. So let's see what Fani Willis has to say about that. And I think this is that good Midas touch with Popak. Baby, you know I love to see that.
This is Michael Popak, Legal AF with breaking news. Fani Willis watching how Donald Trump is attacking the judge and prosecutor in Manhattan. She's sitting in Fulton County, Georgia, about to make her charging decision likely in May before another grand jury. She is warning Donald Trump that if he tries what he's doing in Manhattan in Georgia, he's in for a world of hurt and ultimately possibly adding new charges for intimidation against the prosecutor's office and or his family. This in a recent interview just a day or so after Donald Trump took to the ballroom in Mar-a-Lago and started bashing all of the prosecutors, calling them, if they're black, racists, if they're black, animals, and if they're Jack Smith, insane, out of control, depraved. This is all the code words that he.
You're out there and you're a person of color. I got a question for you. I'd like your perspective. Has the rhetoric, like the racist rhetoric, really turned up of late, or is that just something I'm noticing more? Feels to me like just the straight out racism has been less dog whistle, more bullhorn in the last year or so. We've got to just break this party like a Kit Kat bar. Republicans need to be done in the USA forever. 2024, by the way, if it's a firm enough victory, 2024 can be when that happens. I'm of the belief that they already know that they're on a crash course. That's why this desperate attempt to make America fascist is happening. Because they know their ideology won't survive another generation. It just won't unless they force it on people. Why are they forcing, education out of schools? Any black or gay or whatever, any minority voice being pulled out of schools. Why is that? These people know their ideology is leaving quick. And 2024 is an opportunity to just kill it forever, and it deserves to die. I've heard it called the third Reconstruction. That's a good way to put it. We really do need a new Reconstruction in this country where we hold the Republican Party under the water, politically speaking. We hold the Republican Party under the water until the bubbles stop. This party is poison for America. And yes, that does mean we're going to get an influx of right-wingers into the Democratic Party, and then we will deal with that. We will divide up as necessary, but we need to lay down a marker and say the United States has only political parties that believe in, the United States on it. But I'm glad to see that Fani Willis is taking this seriously, unlike the judge currently dealing with Trump. I'm surprised I haven't heard word one about the little speech he gave following his arrest. And he might have just been blowing off steam. It's just Trump being Trump. Well, Trump's being a criminal. Being Trump apparently means to be a criminal. And I would like to see him held to the same standard we would anybody else who's being investigated or who's going through court proceedings. Anybody else would not be allowed to do that.
Uses that he mixes and matches for the various prosecutors depending upon their ethnic background, their racial background, and the like. And Fani Willis, Fulton County prosecutor who's investigating Georgia election interference, has told Donald Trump in no uncertain terms, you come after my family, you come after my staff, you come after me in an improper way, you've crossed the line, you're no longer exercising proper First Amendment right to speak freely while you're presumed innocent, and you've now committed potentially another crime. And how do we know Donald Trump's going to do it? Because while he was in the courtroom in Manhattan, while all the prosecutors are watching, Jack Smith and all of his line prosecutors, Fani Willis and all of her line prosecutors, the Manhattan DA's office and their dozen prosecutors that are going after Donald Trump now that he's been indicted. They're all watching to see what he's going to do, what he's going to write, what he's going to say, because they're going to use it in their case. They're going to use it in front of a judge to try to get a gag order if possible. They're going to use it to say that he's violated the terms related to his indictment or his arraignment. They're going to use it against him at trial. They're going to use it against him when he tries to get his hands on certain discovery produced by the prosecution, because there's going to be protective orders now in place. And every time the prosecutor needs something in his arsenal to put in front of the judge, Donald Trump is more than willing to provide it to him. You want evidence that I'm not going to respect the rules of this courthouse, the rules of this court? I'll give it to you. You want evidence that I don't respect the judge and I'm going to attack him mercilessly and go after his family and his daughter and his wife? I'm going to give it to you. You want evidence that I'm going to go after the prosecutor and his family and his wife and call them inappropriate things and threaten them to dismiss the indictment? I will give it to you. I mean, this is like manna from heaven. This is a cornucopia of evidence. If I'm the prosecutors in these cases, I am salivating. I'm rubbing my hands in glee because I've got an out of control, crazed opponent on the other side who's giving me gifts every day that I can use actually in real time in my cases. And Fani Willis keeping her eyes on Donald Trump, who's now squealing like a pig. Having been now indicted once, he went after Fani Willis in Mar-a-Lago. And in this now infamous, crazy, mutiny, the Kane mutiny, weird.
God, Popok has the deep cuts. I didn't see that movie he was recommending. What was that? Emily's something? I'll go look at the old stream. Talking about the, Captain Queeg and the Kane mutiny? But yeah, I mean, that's a good way to describe it. Trump is having a very public breakdown.
Of psychobabble, where he just went prosecution by prosecution against everybody and ended up attacking them one by one. And it's easy. If you're a black prosecutor or somebody like who's the New York Attorney General, you're a racist and you're an animal, so you're dehumanized. If you're white, you're insane and you're politically motivated. And everybody's a Trump hater and everybody's a Trump basher. And let's find out what their wives and girlfriends and grandmothers have done for a living.
Until they got to the wives and girlfriends and grandmothers, all of that, arguably fine to call me. But the average white cat that just wants to live in a United States that is, governed by the rule of law, I think that's probably unfair.
Or if they've been a Democrat or not. And let's call attention to the fact that prosecutors are elected in a political process generally. They're either Republican or Democrat, to make a big deal out of that. This is the playbook. And Fani Willis, like Judge Merchan in New York, who said almost the exact same thing to Donald Trump when he was the first judge to have him in his courtroom for a criminal charge. He looked at Mr. Trump in the eye and he said, if you go beyond the First Amendment and you try to incite violence in this city, you and I are going to have a problem. And I'm going to draw the line there. And Fani Willis picked up on that very same theme and said, I recognize the First Amendment, but there are limits. And if you go after me, my family, or my staff, you've crossed that line. And particularly, there is a line in Georgia, as there is in most other states. And the line is expressed in a criminal statute. There's actually a couple of them.
Oh, this is why I like those Popok jams. Give it to me now, baby.
That I think would apply in this particular case. And you look at, if you want to find it, and we'll put it up on the screen, it's 16-10-97.
See, most people are hearing 16-1097. I'm hearing dum 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 dum. Play that jam. Give me that bass line. Law knowledge.
The criminal code of Georgia, and in particular, And I'll read for you what it says.
Oh, yeah.
It says that a person who by threat or force, by any threatening action, letter, or communication, injures any officer of the court, that's the prosecutor in this case, in any proceeding in any such court, then it is punishable as a felony up to 20 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. And that's not all.
Ooh,
There's
good God almighty.
Another provision that says if the attack is on the family of a law enforcement member, which is a prosecutor, it's another felony and it's punishable up to 5 years in prison. So watch it, former president. Watch it, Mr. Trump, who identified himself in court and in his booking as a businessman, not even as the former president, which he loves to call himself. You know, President Trump, when they asked him in New York, because New Yorkers don't care about what you did in the past, especially Donald Trump, what's your profession? He didn't say, I'm a statesman. I'm a former president. I have an institute. I do foreign policy. I'm going for the Peace Prize like Jimmy Carter or Clinton or Obama. He said, businessman. I'm a businessman. Well, Mr. Businessman, if you go after Fani Willis and you keep making these statements in order for you to grift and bring in additional money, because every time you make a statement like that, you raise $5 to $40 million a day. That's on record. We know that from your PACs and all the other stuff that you're doing. She's going after you. And since she hasn't made her indicting decision, I mean, the mental depravity of Donald Trump and just the stupid strategy of pressuring and attacking prosecutors who haven't even yet made their charging decision is beyond stupid. Jack Smith is going to indict Donald Trump for one of 3 grand juries that are sitting in the District of Columbia.
Oh, dear God. Popak, don't tease me. Don't tease me. Don't play with my emotions. I mean, yes, I also believe Jack Smith is going to indict. I don't believe that Trump gave Jack Smith, well, really, Trump gave Merrick Garland any choice. If this would have stayed quiet like it was before Trump ran his mouth about the fact that he was getting searched by the FBI, if this would have stayed quiet, I'm sure we would not have even heard about it. Would not have even, forget an indictment. We wouldn't know Trump had classified documents ever. Garland showed no interest at all. Garland didn't even show any interest in getting Trump for January 6th. He might have had it, but he didn't show any interest, certainly, not until the January 6th committee. Our representatives in Congress made it public what Trump did. I mean, we all saw enough live on television to demand this be investigated. But my God, I mean, Garland had a year head start, and he was surprised by the time the info was coming out about the January 6th committee. So no, I don't have any faith in our justice system, other than they are at least as afraid of us as they are of powerful people. They are afraid that we have realized that that there was a jig in the first place. And in fact, that jig happens to be up. That's what they're afraid of. Okay, Popak, go. Oh, God, tell me. Sing this sweet song of the things you think Smith is about to charge Trump for. Tell me.
Whether it's Mar-a-Lago, whether it's intentional interference with the election process and the peaceful transfer of power, or it's the money grift off of your failure to recognize Joe Biden as the president dutifully elected by voters. One of those 3 things, or all of those 3 things. Attacking him and calling him a radical, which is incorrect, and calling him a Democrat, he's not, he's an independent, and calling him insane when your own lawyer, Jim Trusty, one of your several, this one has been able to keep himself out of being indicted himself or before the grand jury, worked closely with Jack Smith. They're friends when they work together in the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he'll say the exact opposite. Just ask the guy next to you, ask your lawyer next to you. But that's not going to help you, Mr. Trump. That's not going to help you.
Also, side note, just real quick. What if Jack Smith was a Democrat, lifelong Democrat, never voted for anybody except a Democratic politician? Are Democrats not allowed to work in the justice system? Oh, that's news to me, because I had thought that there was a ton of Republicans who worked as prosecutors. I thought that was the case. Clearly, that's not the case. I didn't realize that being a member of a political party, like voting for a political party, disqualified you from doing that job. I didn't realize. But apparently it does. Apparently there are no Democrats or Republicans who work, and I'm kidding. It doesn't matter. The nonsense point. Unless I hear Republicans advocating for absolutely no one in the Department of Justice being, like, I don't know, allowed to participate in any way in politics, then this is an irrelevant point. And of course they know that, and of course they're not being honest here, because they're scum.
In averting an indictment, if anything,
the politicians. I went hard on the voters earlier, just for the record. When I call Republican scum there, in that case, I am referring to the politicians. The voters have just been, tricked. But for the record, I stand by my earlier point. If you vote Republican after Greg Abbott did what he just did, we are going to have serious issues.
It's just pissing off the career investigators, FBI agents, prosecutor investigators, and line prosecutors who are eating, sleeping, and drinking you, Donald Trump, every day for the last 2 years. It's just making them focus more. It's just making them just a little bit more invested in bringing you down based on the evidence that they are developing. Same thing for Fani Willis. Attacking her is not going to make her go away. It's only going to make her redouble her efforts and her perseverance to go after you, to make them feel good every morning about getting up and going after and taking down somebody who's as vile as you are in your attacks, not only on prosecutors who barely get paid to do that job, but their families.
Side note, I notice a lot of the most important people in our, this is such a good thumbnail. Hold on. You'll see what I mean later when I upload the VOD, but we gotta do this. Okay. It'll make sense later. Anti-corporatist. You and I are on the same wavelength. Earlier when you said you were grabbing a drink, I was grabbing a delicious root beer. I almost never just straight up eat candy, but occasionally I do remember that there's no one that can stop me from going to the store and buying a big bag of candy. And that's what I did last night. I've been eating it all day. I'm going to sugar crash in a moment. Cheat day, baby. Hell yeah.
Their wives, their daughters. Okay? If we're going to talk about wives and
that's kind of discordant there.
Daughters, why don't you talk about Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny? Why don't you talk about all those other relationships and the siblings and the daughters and sons of Donald Trump grifting all along the way with our enemies? Do that. Talk about that. But let's not talk about the fact that, Judge Merchan in New York's daughter worked for a time, as a Democrat, and worked for the time for Kamala Harris, on her campaign. Who cares? What does that have to do with anything? Women and children and husbands and wives are separate units, okay? They're independent, and they get to make their own decisions in this world about who they're going to vote for. It doesn't mean that their significant other is prosecuting you because they're Democrats or because, somebody tweeted out something.
Yeah. So, look, as happy as I was, and as much as I agree with Popok on here, good Polish last name, I realize out of context that makes no sense, but there's someone named Diane who will be tickled by that. As much as I agree with him here, yeah, there's no big revelation. Fani Willis just announced publicly that she too will not put up with Trump doing this or that regarding obstruction. And I don't know what this final warning refers to. At least from this segment, I'm not getting it. Final. What makes it final? She's saying she's going to hit him with the cuffs. I would have thought he led with that. I'm trying to give this as much criticism as I would a Fox News piece, despite the fact, and this is something I would say about Fox News, I would compare historically how accurate they've been, despite the fact that Midas Touch historically is way more reliable for the information they say. Like it's not even fair to compare their reliability to Fox News. Fox News, almost every single word out of their hosts' mouths is a lie. Midas Touch, not so. But from just the confines of this piece that we're seeing with Midas Touch, I'm not seeing how it's a final warning from Fani Willis. It just sounds like something that's designed to make me happy, and credit where it's due, it did. I'm glad to see that that Fani Willis, even if it's not a final warning, even if it's not a threat of action of any sort that I can see here, it is good that she's publicly giving Trump a heads up, and by the way, therefore giving Trump supporters a heads up that he's going to be treated like other citizens would be treated. There's not really anything we have to do here other than watch. If you'd like, what you could do, contact Fani Willis and tell her, you go, my friend, you go. Yes, don't take no guff, because I'm sick of prosecutors taking guff. If you're contacting her from, if you don't live in Georgia, don't worry. These people, prosecutors, they're no different from most other people that work in the political world, where the public's opinion of them matters. And I'm sure Fani Willis is thinking, if I get out of this with my career intact, I might have a look at the national stage. And she might want to know that, number one, you know who she is, and number two, you appreciate her. You see what she's doing. Encourage this behavior, in other words. Your opinion will have an effect on how she performs. And if she gets nothing but people saying, you're a Trump hater, I'm not going to trust anything you say now because clearly you just hate Trump, and she doesn't get any emails saying, hell yes, don't let this guy walk all over our justice system, then she's less likely to actually hold Trump accountable. And that has a butterfly effect. Other prosecutors less likely to hold Trump accountable. Other people in the justice system, including judges, less likely to hold Trump accountable. So it wouldn't hurt to write Fani Willis and let her know that you appreciate her. See what the Wicked community has to say once I get back from this here end of the video break. Watch a live stream if you don't. You get to see all the good stuff. All right, looking at the Wicked community. Wicked Foxy Dragon says, they make it seem like she told Trump if he doesn't cut it out, she is going to come to Florida and put him in time out. God, can you just imagine how Trump would react to literal punishments that you would give like a child? I have a feeling it would be no different than an actual child would act. Patrick's Time says Braggs was asked why he didn't disclose the. Oh, I'm sorry. Bragg was asked why he didn't disclose the alleged crimes Trump committed and refused to answer, LMFAO. I'm surprised that you're laughing at that. That probably means he's going to be, number one, demonstrating that in court, and number two, proving those other crimes with witnesses. In other words, I would expect further charges in this case against Trump. Don't think just because charges have been filed that those are the only charges that are going to be filed. And it's also important to know Patrick's time. They don't need to prove that the other crimes occurred. What they need to do, just so you understand what the charges we're looking at here are, they need to prove that Trump committed the crimes that they are charging for these to be felonies in furtherance of another crime, whether or not that crime was successfully committed. And the reason for that is not just to get Trump. The reason for that is it changes the nature of the crime they're charging. So, for example, on its face, if it was purely just to affect the 2020 election, for example, the 2016 election, for example, that he was covering up these payments, which it appears that Bragg is confident he can charge. That in and of itself makes it a felony. And the reason it makes it a felony is because it's different than just if you covered up, for example, the business expense because you didn't feel like filing it. And you just said, oh, I don't want to go into detail about that. I don't want my accountant asking about that. Let's just say it was something else. That's a lighter crime than if the lie he told to the government, which is what this comes down to, if that was to cover up a different activity. Another way to think of it is imagine that you broke into a bank to destroy the security camera footage of the robbery that happened the night before. And you get charged with that break-in to destroy the footage of the robbery the day before. And they can't prove anymore that you did the robbery the day before. Well, it doesn't matter that they can't prove it. All they need to prove in this case is that you destroyed that footage in order to cover up the previous robbery. Even if they think you did the previous robbery, it changes the nature of the crime you committed. We're getting funny nicknames. Yeah. More or less what we talking about. Remember, if we get to 20 likes, we're going to have a comedian showing a rather humorous take on how the millennial generation tends to view Joe Biden, or at the very least leftists. So if you're intrigued to see what leftists think of Joe Biden, and you yourself are not a leftist, I would consider liking this stream. You'll get some more insight into how leftists think at the very least. There's some benefit for you. Well, we had something I wanted to show. Oh, yes. So the David Pakman show, not actually David Pakman. Recently, you know what? It seems like we got some folks in the audience that might benefit from this. The David Pakman show recently discussed this whole business of Republicans wanting to get Biden. Like, just find something they can charge him with. And you know what? I'm very much on the side of Republicans here. Oh, yes, hear me out. I'm going to do a proper intro, and then we'll talk about this. The David Pakman show recently talked about this flood of junior level Republican prosecutors, mostly at the state level, who just want to get Biden for something like as retaliation for Trump. Now, by the way, in and of itself, that's illegal. That's illegal. If you're specifically trying to get a prosecution to retaliate against somebody else's prosecution, that is obstruction of justice. Even if you are the prosecutor. In fact, especially if you're the prosecutor, that's going to have to be hashed out. And we're going to have to get those folks and boot them out. And probably, if we can prove that they were doing that, charge them. That is, if they even exist, because I haven't heard from these prosecutors. I've only heard politicians talking about prosecutors that want to do this. But maybe they exist. Maybe. But I'll tell you what, Republicans, if you're out there, if I have at least one Republican ear hearing me, let me tell you something. You can't get Biden. He's in office right now. Joe Biden could come to your house and shoot your dog in front of you, and you can't do anything about it because he can't be charged while he's president. And I want to help you change that. Yes, sir. I want to help you be able to prosecute Joe Biden, whether he's in office or not. The reality is, 2024 is not looking great for Republicans. I don't know what you heard, but the country's sick of your bullshit, which means that it's very likely, not guaranteed, certainly. Lord knows I learned after 2016, not guaranteed that Joe Biden will stay in office. Hell, it's not even guaranteed that he's running, but still, odds are, if you're looking at the future, you got another 6 years of Biden. That's a lot of statute of limitations expiring. It's a lot of stuff you might be able to maybe get him on that you won't be able to. Unless the Office of Legal Counsel changes an opinion that they have held for a very long time. And I want to help you get a sitting president if it turns out that they broke a law. But first, let's see what David Pakman had to say about this most recent, or the David Pakman Show had to say about this most recent phenomenon.
Hey everybody, welcome to the David Pakman Show. I'm producer Pat Ford filling in for David today. David is on vacation for much of this week. He will be back on Friday. A number of Republicans are calling for the arrest of Joe Biden and also Hunter Biden and any other Democrats that they can possibly trump up charges against as a way to retaliate against Donald Trump getting indicted and then arrested last week in New York. Now, what issues do they want to arrest Biden and these other Democrats over? That's not as important. They just want to do this because they see it as a way to get vindication, right? Because Donald Trump, for once in his entire life, is finally being held accountable to some degree, to some small degree, after his years and years of criminality. I spoke about this matter on last week's Friday.
Ooh, we're getting close to 20 likes. If we can get to 20 likes, we will do the bonus segment looking at a comedian heckling Joe Biden in a way that I was just tickled by, and I think very accurately describes how, generally speaking, the left feels about Joe Biden, and certainly from my experience, millennials in particular. Let's let this man keep going.
A bonus show, the award-winning, world-famous bonus show, I might add. But there have since been more Republicans adding to this chorus of right-wing calls to do something like this, to levy charges against Joe Biden and these other Democrats. First and foremost, we're hearing from Congressman James Comer, who chairs the House Oversight Committee. He went on Fox and Friends late last week to comment on how there are these district attorneys in places like Kentucky and Tennessee who are trying to come up with some way to charge the Bidens, even though they don't know what issue they're going to do it over. Let's take a look at this clip.
Before we hear the clip, I just want to say that guy should be dragged in front of a committee, any committee we can get him in front of, and asked under oath who said that, because it was illegal. Now, I think what we're going to find out, nobody said that to him. That's what I think we're going to find out. But I truly don't know. Maybe they did say it. But regardless, that's illegal. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you shouldn't support that. Just saying.
And I had 2 calls yesterday, one from a county attorney in Kentucky and one from a county attorney in Tennessee. They were Republican, obviously. Both states are heavily Republican. They want to know if there are ways they can go after the Bidens now. And they've opened up a can of worms. They've set precedents now that we can't go back on. And now we're going to see a judicial system that's already bogged down with doing what they're supposed to do, and that's going after real criminals, people that are committing real crime.
Now, what jurisdiction would these DAs have to indict Biden?
Yeah, I would have. He's going to say
there, of course, isn't any, because the crime would have had to take place in one of those 2 states.
Just to play devil's advocate, presumably that's why. Presumably, I have my doubts as to whether these people even exist, but presumably that's why they were calling Comer to find out, hey, is there anything that would have been done in my neck of the woods that I could get this guy on? Again, that's an illegal phone call if it happened. And we should remember that in 2024 as well. When we, look at me, when we get a blue house in 2024, we should talk about this.
Remember Donald Trump's hush money payment that took place in New York City, and where are the charges coming from about this? You guessed it, New York City. The issues that Republicans talk about potentially indicting Biden on have to do with his supposed corruption, even though they really can't articulate it all that well, but they'll mention Ukraine or China or some other foreign country. Sometimes they'll talk about the classified documents scandal that implicated Joe Biden, even though Donald Trump is way more guilty on that topic. So if you're going to go after Biden on this, it stands to reason you'd also have to go after Donald Trump. If you do go after Biden on any of these topics, it would probably need to come from the federal governments, or at least involve the states in question, like the supposed crime.
Ooh, yes. I see in the comments. We're being told that the laptop is Russian disinfo. Are we talking about? Hunter Biden's laptop? Look, I'm super wary of Russian disinformation, and that is a serious thing to be concerned about. I don't think Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation, though. It's just not relevant. It's the president's kids' nudie pics, or it's possible evidence of crimes that have long since expired, such as hiring a prostitute or doing crack cocaine. We've seen no evidence to the contrary of that. And look, I don't care. The Justice Department wants to go after him. Like, if it's somehow still within the statute of limitations to hire a prostitute wherever he hired a prostitute, or to have done crack wherever he did that, which is what I'm told are the pictures of, in addition to just nude pictures of Hunter Biden. Sure, go get him. What do I care? By all means. But I don't believe it's Russian disinformation. If we're talking about other laptops being Russian disinfo, clarify for me. I'll look into it. Maybe it is.
Time that took place would have had to have taken place in one of these states. But the fact is that this has nothing to do with, trying to stay consistent or trying to uphold the rule of law or trying to, make sure that this is done in a proper way. It really is just about getting vindication. We're also now hearing from whiny, hysterical right-wing talk show host Mark Levin about this topic. He's also trying to get anyone to charge Joe Biden and the Democrats for what? Again, not important, but he just knows that it has to be done. Here's Mark Levin.
I despise Mark Levin, but we're going to listen to him. And hey, if we got any Republicans out there that are still listening after I've been giving you the business for the last couple of minutes, first of all, I respect you. Well done. Second of all, I have an item of mutual interest that we will discuss right after this, because I truly want to help you be able to prosecute Joe Biden in office, so you don't have to wait for him to get out of office. You can, if there is a case, if this guy is successful and he sways enough people in America and he gets the ear of a prosecutor bent his way, if he's successful, there's actually something that can be done about it. So I'm going to help you out. This is a channel where a lefty usually does pitches to lefties about what they can do about things. Well, guess what? Right now, I'm going to do a pitch to you two right-wingers about what you can do to throw Joe Biden's ass in prison right next to Trump. And I'll tell you, if that's the resolution we end up with both Trump and Biden in prison, I'd call it a B+ outcome. I wouldn't be heartbroken. I'd think, oh, that sort of waters down what Trump did, sort of undercuts the seriousness of Trump's crimes, which by the way include a coup d'etat in the United States of America. Real problematic fella. But I wouldn't be heartbroken. So I will tell you how. Here's Mark Levin saying some nonsense.
And once again, for multiple times, this show's heard all over the country. It's heard all over the world, actually. I'm asking Republican
Technically, so is this one.
prosecutors out there to take a very good look at your own statutes, local, state, and even federal, but particularly the state prosecutors, the DAs, the state prosecutors, and so forth. See if there's anything there that you can use to charge Biden or any senior Democrat official. I mean, if you're not 100% certain, you're 80% certain that it'll fly, then do it.
Yeah. For sure. Do it. I mean, you can't indict. You really can't. It's literally the OLC's opinion currently that you can indict. But if Republicans break that precedent, then the precedent's broken, and I want it broken regardless. So by all means, yeah, I don't think you're going to find anything. I don't think you're going to get to 80%. I don't think you're going to get to 5% certainty that you'll get this thing a guilty verdict in a court of law. But sure, charge the mother effer. If you honestly think he did something illegal, charge him. Yeah. And it really shouldn't be a taboo to hold our leaders accountable. And nobody that is supporting a politician, whether they are running or in office, should be afraid of that politician testifying in court. If you're afraid of that, why are you supporting them? What are you concerned will come out? I'm confident Joe Biden hadn't done anything illegal right now. But if he has, I don't want to find out in 2024. I want to find out now. And if I can't find out now, I certainly want to be able to find out before the election in 2024 so I can consider if I will still support him. By all means, charge him. Sure.
It's the only way this will stop. Do it.
That much I agree with. Let's talk about what you can do. All right, here's the promised bit. What can you do about this whole situation? Well, if you're on the left, you can tell your representatives that you want this hashed out. You want to find out who exactly are the prosecutors that are looking for a crime to charge Biden with, because that's illegal. We shouldn't have them. I just slipped into mid-Michigan for a second there. We shouldn't have those folks doing the job that they're doing because they're not operating honestly, and this job requires honest actors. I think it's too much to ask, but if you're a right-winger, you should also. Rather, it's not too much to ask, but I think it's not going to be listened to. I'll say it anyway. If you're a right-winger and you genuinely care about justice and you genuinely care about the Justice Department functioning equally for everybody, then yes, you should demand that of your representatives as well. But let's give something, a little candy just for the right-wingers. And lefties, I'm going to ask that you do the same thing. Link in the description. Write the Office of Legal Counsel. Tell them that the opinion they released in the 70s is wrong. Reverse their opinion that the DOJ still follows to this day, even after we've seen how flawed it is. Reverse their opinion that a sitting president cannot be indicted. There's no law that prevents us from indicting a sitting president. The founding fathers made no law that prevents us from indicting a sitting president. Right-wingers, you should be salivating at this. Go get them. Write the OLC. If you seriously want Joe Biden to be held criminally accountable for something, well, you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait till I and 78 other million Americans quit electing him president. And I'll tell you, right now, the way things are looking, he's got my vote for 24. I don't see how he's lost anybody else's vote for 24. I see him running against the guy he beat in 2020. And Trump's been acting crazier since 2020. Joe Biden beat Donald Trump before January 6th. Do you honestly think Donald Trump's going to beat Joe Biden in an election after the attempted coup? No, sir. So if you want Joe Biden held criminally accountable because you believe that in a court they will be able to prove that he did something criminal, well, guess what? You got no options until, at a minimum, 2028. I bet you don't want to wait that long. And I'll tell you, lefties, do you remember 2018, 2019? Do you remember seeing things that we believed to be crime and then being furious when nothing got done about it? If the principle was true then, that a president should not be immune from the law, then it's true now, too. And as I say on this channel all the time, look, right-wingers, we don't have to like each other to work towards items of mutual interest. Left-wingers, we don't have to like each other. We don't have to like them. We don't have to like those folks. We can still have things that are of mutual interest. And generally speaking, it sounds like to me, if I'm hearing the voices on the ground correctly, it sounds to me like some of you MAGA folks might just want presidents in general to be subject to the same justice system that we are. I agree. Look at that. We might knife fight after this in an alleyway. Who knows? We are not going to get along as people. But as people who agree on one item, that presidents ain't special, and the hell with them anyway, we can work together. Right now, in Ukraine, there is actual Nazis, like people that agree with Nazi rhetoric, and they are fighting on both sides of that war. Just like in the United States, we have those guys that, attend a training session. Well, I don't know why I'm quoting that. Literally train with guns in the woods and have swastikas sewn in to their jackets. What would happen if we got invaded? We wouldn't say no to those groups who are already armed and already familiar with playing Rambo in the woods, fighting off the invaders. Ukraine's doing the same thing with their psychopaths. And we have the Wagner Group, who are famous for hiring exactly what you'd imagine a group called the Wagner Group hiring. They're fighting for the Ruskies. My point is, when there are things that are this momentous, that are this basic, it behooves us all to join up with our socioeconomic class, which is to say, for Americans in this scenario, literally everybody who's not the president, and insist that what we care about be tended to. We can do this. I would love, if you're a right winger out there, I would just love it if you would let me know that you did this. I want to reach out to you on these topics because, believe it or not, despite the fact that I believe the country should be working towards a socialist utopia, I surely do believe that. And I just presume you want, us all to worship Elon Musk at a church. I'm being facetious. Whatever it is you want, I assume it's very different than what I want. But in both of our dream scenarios, it sounds to me like the president is not above the law. So write the OLC. Link is in the description. Help us make it so that a president is treated no differently than everybody else. Make sure the OLC's opinion gets reversed. Please and thank you. We can do it. Got to get a little creative. Let's see what the Wicked community has to say. Ooh, we're so close. If we could magically, in the next 60 seconds, get 4 more likes, we will end the stream with a look at what a comedian thinks of the Joe Biden presidency, and I think it's the most accurate take. The anti-corporatist says, bro, you're in the wrong place. We definitely prefer someone to the left of Joe Biden to be president, shaking my head. Wrong place for pitching that, but right place for finding solutions of mutual interest because we have a lot. Patrick's Time says Biden isn't calling the shots. He's calling them as much as the president can call them. He's not really using the bully pulpit. I'll give you that much. The guy is not. If you got into politics in the era of Trump, you probably think that the presidency involves a ton of just like lampshading everything your party does. And you know what? He should. Except that Biden is a diehard centrist, and he does not want. He doesn't want the things that most Democrats do want. Jim Green says Newsom 2024. He's the badass the Dems need desperately. I agree that I would probably enjoy him maybe more than Biden in office. But here's the thing. I think Biden. I just realized I can't prove this in any way. My theory, and correct me later when I say that it's fact, or when I imply that it's fact, because it's not. But my theory is that Biden will be easier to move towards wherever the wind is blowing. He's always just taken the temperature of the room and then gone with that. Biden really doesn't have strong, he doesn't have strong beliefs, I guess, in terms of the nuts and bolts of government. He definitely is a centrist. He definitely is a neoliberal. He thinks big business is good for America, et cetera, et cetera. But he has shown a willingness to change based on, it has to be extremely popular, but based on popular public opinion. So, and I think Newsom is not that. I think Newsom would do what he thinks is best. But it would be interesting to see if, I'd be shocked if Newsom and, throw this out there, Gretchen Whitmer didn't run in 28. Jim Green says, look what he's doing to DeSantis. All you need to know, Trump is ripping into him. Patrick Kibido said, Newsom just said he would not run in 2024, but I bet that would change if Biden asked him to. Yeah, it can't be stressed enough how long before, in politics time, how long we are before the actual 24 election. I know we're already talking about it like crazy, and I think we're right to, given this unique situation that we're in. But so much can change. Good God almighty, so much can change. Expect a wildly different playing field in ways that I will be unable to predict accurately right now. Oh, well, folks, I just want to use now to talk about Friday Peace Talks real quick. Friday Peace Talks are when Your old pal Jake doesn't do any preparation at all, except reading the good book, which is, of course, Bernie Sanders' It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism. But no preparation at all. We simply talk about clips that the audience brings for us to watch. If you think, and by the way, this is a very left-leaning audience, the way she is, but if you're not a lefty and you're thinking, these lefties are getting bad information, I need to show them the truth. Cool, please do that. If I'm wrong, I want to find out. I want to be better informed. So swing by Friday Peace Talks. That's at 9 p.m., a little later than the average stream. Swing by Friday Peace Talks, and we will certainly have a look at whatever clip you want to talk about, and then we'll talk about it. Bring us some Fox News. Bring us some OAN. Bring us all of that. If you have friends or family that tend not to watch online shows, or they watch different online shows, or you just think they would have a hoot sharing clips with us, bring them on down. Friday Peace Talks, that is at 9 p.m. I hope to see a whole bunch of folks there. But in the meantime, this has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. We're on every weeknight at 8 p.m. unless it's Friday, in which case it's 9 p.m. and weekends generally when I remember that I am a professional YouTuber. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see you next time. Christ Jesus, one day I'm going to get this outro smooth. Can't you imagine how strange that would be? I guess, oh, there it is. See you next time, folks. Also, my name's Jake.